All right, so for my story game, I'm going to go with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is a very popular game and quite the opposite on the internet in terms of as far as Fallout 4 in terms of reception. Um, and again, I'm kind of the opposite too. But sorry, I'm getting muddled again. So I'm going to start with the background on it. It was created by CG Project Red. You probably know them because they are working on Cyberpunk 2077, which should be coming out soon, but keeps getting pushed back. So eventually it will come out, hopefully before 2077. Witcher 3 was originally released on the PC, PS4, and Xbox One in May 2015. It was later released on the Switch October last year, 2019. And it is going to get a re release on next gen consoles in 2021. And if you previously own it on a current gen console, I'm pretty sure you can get the upgrade for free on the next gen consoles. So currently it is available on PC, PS4, Xbox, and Switch. So the reason I really like the story in this game is it's very in depth and it's very cohesive. And like Korean said, the way the voice acting is done adds so much to the game. Typically, I really like games with an open ended character like Fallout or to an extent Mass Effect, where I can kind of create my own character. But I think it worked really, really well here in that Geralt has his own personality. So basically, instead of having like, oh, I want this kind of Geralt, like you could say like, oh, I have this kind of Commander Shepard in Mass Effect, or I have that kind of Commander Shepard. This is always going to be Geralt. It's always going to be him. All the options are always going to be appropriate to his character. So basically, you just kind of choose in this moment, is Geralt going to be more of a sympathetic character, or is he going to be more pragmatic? So they do a very good job with that. I also think the lore in it is very, very well done. There's lots of depth to things, and there's lots of. It's one of those games where when you play it, you probably should have an internet browser nearby so you can look up names and places because they are going to be referencing a lot. Now, I think this definitely has the advantage in the sense that it comes from a book series, so there's a lot of background already there that they don't really have to develop. I also think that that was actually a very good design choice. A lot of games, when they come out, they feel like they kind of have to spoon feed you everything, especially if a game is like a new IP, like, for example, Horizon Zero Dawn, because there is no background. So you have to collect everything. In The Witcher 3, they throw you in, and unlike other games where they basically rehash everything, they basically just said, you know what? We're just going to play this game, and you're either going to have to figure it out on the fly or you're going to have to look it up. And they pretty much provided you with everything you would need in game if you're willing to look for it. So, um, but the story is very good. It's very in depth. The characters, especially, are very, very well thought out. They interact very, very well together. I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but this is basically the conclusion of Geralt's story, so to speak. He had kind of a character arc in the books, and I think in the last book, he basically they kind of assume that okay, see, it's done. Uh, Post book, those all the Witcher games take place after the book series, so they're later down the line. This is an older Geralt. It is a more mature Geralt. But they've basically had their arc, and Witcher 3 kind of finishes that off. So it does give a good kind of conclusion to that. Now, obviously, there's going to be a Witcher 4 because this is so popular. But I think they had a good place to end it. So the kind of game that this is for is basically people who are really, really into story and character and really in depth. If you're the kind of person who likes TV shows like Game of Thrones or something like that, where there's a huge cast of characters and everybody's very important in their own way, and just the dynamics between them is very, very both subtle and dramatic. You're really going to love Witcher 3. There's a lot of that in there. There's not the political intrigue, it's more character driven. But yeah, I think if you're that kind of person, you're going to enjoy it. So, also, it's very, very long. So make sure that you have plenty of time before you play it. So yeah. The other interesting thing though is it does not only is it based off of the books, but it is CG Product Red is a Polish developer company. They're a Polish development company. The original books, the writer is Polish, and it heavily references a lot of these Eastern European lore, legends, and stories of fairies and werewolves and that sort of thing. So this is kind of an interesting way to get into some of the kind of lore that gets overshadowed by more of the, say, English speaking world or Celtic world. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap in some of these stories. But at least in America, growing up, we had a lot of the more, the Irish legends or the English legends, that sort of mythology. And so seeing that kind of more Eastern European, Poland and Scandinavia and that sort of thing is very interesting, actually. So.
Okay. Um, so what was, I mean, of course you like the story of this world, but what was something you liked about The Witcher besides the story?
Uh, I could make a long list of things I didn't like. There were definitely a lot of flaws on the internet. It's kind of the messiah of games, and having played it much much later than when it came out, I was like, oh my god, there are so many flaws in it. that I don't know why it gets so many passes. But there are a lot of things I like. So I did like the fact that the quests typically do have more than one solution to them, and they do have at least somewhat of an impact later in the game. So, for example, uh, there's a part where you meet this one. People think she's a witch. She's actually a sorceress. And you go through her whole quest, and at the end, she kind of does this shady thing, and you can either choose to be totally okay with it, or you can choose to kind of let her go, but tell her, if I ever see you again, I'm going to finish you off, or you can just kill her right then and there. And uh, this character, depending on your choices, later on in the game, the character may or may not come back to assist with other things. So I do like that in the game, that your choices and who you help and that sort of thing do impact things later on down the line. So it's not as open ended as, say, Divinity, in that you can do anything any way you want. Usually there's probably only maybe three solutions to a problem. But I do like the fact that there was that kind of forward thinking to it and kind of foreshadowing in a way where, I do this with this character and it will impact it, something later on, for better or worse. Sometimes, you might let somebody go, you have mercy on somebody, and later on it turns out that they've actually just sold information about you to some other group that now wants to kill you or something like that. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, I did like just kind of how everything kind of meshes together. It's woven very well, I will say.
Okay, to add, Cyberpunk is went gold 2 weeks ago.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's definitely coming out November 19th, 2020. Do you think you'll be picking it up?
Uh I Yes, probably. It's one of the things. I have other priorities that I'm kind of like, I am buying this, like Near Automata, not Near Automata. I keep saying Near Automata. Near Replicant is a priority for me. I would like to play it, but I think it might be one of those. I don't think I'll play it on release. I think it's going to be one of those games that I might wait a few months until kind of an opening in my backlog shows up.
Sure, sure,
Because
sure.
Witcher 3 was very, very long. But what I have heard that's actually interesting is that CD Projekt Red did say that they're shortening Cyberpunk. Um, so they want to shorten it because a lot of people were saying that Witcher was very long. However, they're trying, excuse me. However, they are going to try to uh, give you more options. So they're trying to add more replay value. So in the end, the idea is that you're going to get the same amount of gameplay that you would out of The Witcher. It's just that in The Witcher, it's one long continuous thing, and here it's a shorter thing, but you can attack it different ways. So every time you play, it's going to be slightly different. So I am looking forward to that. That sounds very interesting. I know that's a very difficult thing to do well, so I will probably wait and see what other people are saying before I jump in on that.
Okay.